Okay guys, before we start the video, I need to get something off my chest. Um, well, hear me out. After years of shelvings, rights exchanges, and delays, we finally received our very first fully animated theatrical Looney Tunes movie the day the Earth blew up. You might have heard of this film from every film YouTuber praising it to high heaven despite you only hearing about the film via said YouTubers. Now, before you pin this lack of marketing on David Zaslav fulfilling his destiny of killing off one of the most iconic cartoon franchises of all time, don't worry, we'll get to that soon enough, you need to consider that this film was actually distributed by Ketchup Entertainment. Who's Ketchup Entertainment, you may ask? Exactly, they're a small company, so don't blame them for the fact that this movie wasn't marketed to the same scale as your average Marvel CGI demo reel or Tom Cruise stunt show. While I would have wanted this movie to get a bigger release, considering the absolutely abysmal management of the Looney Tunes brand by the current higher-ups at Warner Bros. Discovery, the fact that this film got released theatrically at all feels like a miracle. Despite this, it doesn't make the underperformance hurt any less because, man, this movie blew me away, pun absolutely intended. You're watching the LionDog show and I just watched The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. I feel that the most obvious place to begin would be with the animation. It's a phenomenal modernization of the classic Looney Tunes art style, and I also appreciate the simplicity of it. That's not to say that they don't experiment with the animation, as they do so with certain scenes and even certain characters, but for the most part, it's rock solid traditional animation that flourishes on the big screen. If this was a simple streaming release like initially planned, I would have likely taken the animation for granted as a low-budget streaming film, but the theatrical release allows the animation to prove itself against the other animated movies out there. While on the subject of the departure from mainstream animated films, it is great to hear seasoned voice actors headline this movie. I'm not saying that every celebrity voice casting is a failure, as there are times when they work wonders, but there's just something to be said about a voice actor just disappearing into a role so perfectly that you can only hear the character instead of the inverse of most animated movies these days. Not an Aquafina in sight, just professional voice actors living in the moment. Moving over to the story, I enjoyed how compact the cast was, especially in terms of pre-established Looney Tunes characters. With this kind of franchise, it can be tempting to implement a ton of characters just to please the fans, but keeping the main cast to Daffy, Porky, and later Petunia allowed the three of them to be properly fleshed out instead of them fading into a larger ensemble. It may not be the biggest cast, but I'd rather have a great movie starring only 3 Looney Tunes than a mediocre movie starring all of them fighting for screen time. When it comes to how these characters are portrayed, these have got to be my favorite iterations of both Daffy and Porky since probably the Looney Tunes show. The opening credits do a splendid job getting you invested in the two's friendship through a montage akin to a more comedic take on Up's iconic opening. They get you to care about Daffy and Porky so much that the plot could have just been them trying to make enough money to repair the roof and it still would have been captivating. However, the alien invasion storyline still works with its absurdity and even occasional clever plot points. The only part of the story that lost my interest was the no one believes Daffy section of the film. I get that it's necessary for the plot and does fit with Daffy's character, but it was a major slam on the brakes for the pacing of the film and could have been shorted. Going back to characters, they did an excellent job making Petunia a memorable character and giving her a purpose outside of being Porky's girlfriend by making her the brains of the team. I've seen bits and pieces of the Looney Tunes cartoons where she was an airhead not unlike Looney Tunes show's Lola, so this is a bit of a different take compared to what we've recently gotten from her, but it works for the science fiction plot and makes more sense with her being the love interest to one of the more sensible members of the Looney Tunes cast. I also appreciate how the film was able to integrate a decent romance between Porky and Petunia without clouding Porky and Daffy's central friendship. If anything, her integration into the plot through Daffy actually strengthens the two's friendship. If I had to criticize a single aspect of this film, it would unfortunately be the humor. There's nothing that made me groan like Space Jam 2, but most of the laughs were snickers rather than full-on laughter. I also didn't care for the modern pop culture references. They're not influencer smurf bad, but for a film that's meant to be an homage to classic Looney Tunes shorts and retro Alien B movies, jokes about Starbucks orders and TikTok just felt out of place. The movie still has its moments, but it's still somewhat disappointing for a Looney Tunes project not to be as funny as you you expected. Despite that, this film is an easy recommendation for longtime Looney Tunes fans and even newcomers to this series, as there aren't any plot points or inside jokes that would confuse them. If you have the time and money to see it, I highly recommend it. And if you enjoyed it as much as I did, tell others about it. The film only had a $15 million budget, giving it a small threshold to make a profit, and while the film didn't have the best opening weekend, it's nothing a little word of mouth can't fix. And if it's no longer playing near you, then buy the film on DVD or digitally once it's available. Look, this franchise is in a horrible place right now. They just removed every Looney Tunes short off Max the weekend this film released like no one would notice. If you want to see Coyote vs. Acme, or any future Looney Tunes release for that matter, then we need to show the higher-ups that there are still Looney Tunes fans who will make it worthwhile to release. This film only has the future of a cultural touchstone on its shoulders. No pressure. I mean, if Willy Wonka can be a successful IP in this day and age, why can't the Looney Tunes? You've been watching The LionDog Show. Have a great day, and stick around for more.